opinions expressed in this show belong to the person expressing them. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of Rancher or any other entity.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Coffee and Cloud Native, the show that shares news and interesting content related to Kubernetes, Cloud Native, and other nifty technology. My name is Adrian Goins, and I am ecstatic to be here with you today. If you're watching live, consider following or subscribing to the channel, and if you're watching a replay in the future, please also give the video a thumbs up so the YouTube algorithm shares it with other people. Join the free community site and the Discord server. I'll fire a link there. You can snap that with your phone, and that'll take you to Discord. Live chat happens on Discord with a bot that relays between YouTube and Twitch, so come hang out with us either during the show or after. As you'll see in a moment, the live chat is where the real action happens. So let's say hello to everybody today. Okay, WifeBot, that's totally not cool. WifeBot and I have been watching Saw for the last few days, the going through the whole marathon where we finished Saw 3 last night, and I guess we're going to start on Saw 4 tonight. We do this periodically. We'll marathon a whole series of stuff. Fast and the Furious, Saw, the entire Avengers Marvel Universe thing that's like 23 movies long. Anyway, so good morning, WifeBot. Good morning, creepy doll from Saw. Hey, Mladen, Ian, Mac, I didn't think you were going to make it today. It's nice to see you. Marco, Elibot, Isa Aguilar, Nuno. Well, Nuno says we need to spam the hell out of Smalls' Discord to show the love so he comes back. Okay. Ariel, good morning. Restreambot, who do we got coming in? Hey, Mac, watching from YouTube as well. More zombies. Really? WifeBot? Zombies. Oh, because there's zombies outside. Yeah, there's zombies outside again today. This is zombie shade cloth. I actually raised it slightly. My hand doesn't work. I raised it slightly so I could get a little bit of sunlight in there. Wojtek. The final week of zombies. Maybe. We're hoping. They might actually be finished with the work. Okay, Frank, hello. Oh my gosh, it's just all zombies. All right. Hello to everybody, and hello to everybody who is watching. Boardwalk 2000, Matthew Cooper sneaking in. One Drop, good morning. Hello. Let's get started. So the collector bots have gathered candidates for the show, and Trufflebot has scored them from 1 to 5 coffees. He'll post them one at a time in Discord. Anyone watching live can rate them. Your votes are used to train the machine learning model that chooses content for the show, so get in there and vote. First up today, I've got some funny stuff in today, and Shipwreck, you're going to love the tool of the day today. I think it's going to be a really fun one. First up, we've got an interesting, not really a post-mortem, but an interesting story about how not to build a web application. Parler. We're not going to get into the politics of whatever, although this article is wrong. Parler has resurfaced on another platform, and they're probably behind CloudFront, so nobody knows exactly where they are, but that's not relevant. What's relevant is that when all of the nonsense happened, almost 2 weeks ago now, and people suspected that Parler was going to get knocked off of AWS, they started archiving all of the content on Parler. All of the videos, they're not tweets, but whatever, all the postings, all of the geotag data, all of the photos, all of the everything. And in order to do this, aspiring user named DonkNB had earlier reverse engineered part of the Parler iOS client, which had been written in Python. Using its API, a jailbroken iPad, and Ghidra, an NSA open source reverse engineering tool. Remember that name, because that's going to come up a little later on in the show. DonkNB exploited weaknesses in Parler's design, and then they were able to pull down every single Parler public post URL in sequential order. Idiots! So Parler's API didn't require authentication. Anyone at any time could have used it to see all of the members' public content, and then they simply added 1 to the ID of the URLs that people were posting. So once you had 1, it was really easy to just iterate back and iterate forward and get everything. And that's exactly what they did. They iterated, they pulled it off. It was something like 70 terabytes of data Yeah, 70 terabytes of data was scraped from Parler, which was more than DoncNB could do by herself. Apparently it's a her. It's hard to tell from the name. But these are confusing times anyway. Could have been Bob, and it might have still been her. Who knows? Anyway, DoncNB enlisted the support of lots of other people called the archive team to pull off the big pull. No references to Tugger from yesterday. Sorry. The big pull. And they scraped all the Parler stuff. Now, Parler has resurfaced, and probably they haven't fixed their application. It's probably still totally ownable. So the moral of the story is if you're going to write something that purports to be a private and secure social network, it behooves you to have a clue about security. There you go. There's a lot to learn from here, whether you're using Parler or not. Next we have, okay, this one's fun. This one's not actually super relevant, and I don't particularly care what you vote it, but any of you who were watching in the security channel yesterday saw that I ran into a really weird problem with the community site platform. The community site platforms, community.cncn.io. And any of you who are who've been away for a while, notice this QR code here actually changes with every single thing that we're reviewing. So you can always just snap that with your phone and you'll get the latest URL. Anyway, community site running on Mighty Networks. Mighty Networks are wonderful. And I posted all of the links yesterday and it was like 403. And I'm like, what? It's like permission denied. I'm like, what? Like, did I not pay my bill? Like, what's going on? And I had to spend about a half an hour posting blocks of the text until I was able to narrow it down to a single word. And that single word was new-ps session, which was an article from another series in this person's article. Now, this article itself is not actually super exciting. Basically, they've copied the man page and pasted it in a web page. But whatever. The reason that I have it on the show today is because I specifically want to try and post today, remove PS session, and see if they are going to allow it. My best guess is that they're running on Azure or some other Windows platform and that they've got some overly aggressive SQL injection filter that saw a new PS session and bugged the heck out and was like, no! And blocked it. So if you're looking at the links from yesterday, you'll see that there's actually a double hyphen in there. That's not correct. I know it's not correct. I'm sorry. This is on the show just so we can see if Mighty Networks is actually going to fix their stuff. Ha, 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 ha. Next. Next, we have a sponsored post from Sysdig. Promoting open source. Hooray. Sysdig's open source stuff. Hooray. And Sysdig's paid solutions. Also hooray, because they're also really useful. This is an interview with Loris done by The Register, where he talks about why open source is relevant. And I think this is important for enterprises, because enterprises, not everybody still is on the open source bandwagon like we are. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but a lot of enterprises correlate expensive with valuable or commercial with value. I don't know. They make this weird correlation that I think stems from a protectionist idea, the whole nobody got fired for buying IBM stuff. And there's a lot of extra stuff that comes with open source, good and bad. So Loris says, as with open source itself, this was a bottom-up insurgency because the top-down proprietary model had failed to deliver the security smarts that developers and their customers needed fast enough. He's talking about why open source security stuff became more prevalent. And I agree with that, but not entirely. I also feel that commercial solutions focus on generating revenue. So they will always err on the side of caution, They will err on the side of caution. I always say error because it's like error, but then I realized watching something recently that it's actually and I sound stupid. Whatever. Anyway, they will hedge their bets and focus on generating revenue over generating value, whereas open source software always has to generate value first. Monetization might be a second or third or 56th item in the list. If nobody gets value from the solution, then nobody's going to use it. The rest of the article talks about the origin of sysdig, but I had some other thing highlighted down at the bottom where when people are submitting to give a masterclass at Rancher, I created a framework that says that, okay, like, we don't want this just to turn into a sales pitch, but we understand that these partners of ours are interested in selling their product. Totally get it. So I asked that they create a blog post and that their presentation solves the problem in their domain of expertise 70-30 with open source solutions. Even if the open source solution, how would you do this if you had zero money? It might not be the easiest, fastest, best, most reliable way to do it, but it's doable. And then you can talk about how your solution makes it better. So anything can probably be done with open source tooling at a trade-off. And that's where the real value of companies that build on top of open source come into play. They're able to give you a better experience faster so that you can use your resources more wisely. And in many cases, that's worth paying for. And the last thing with open source, our competitors are able to take advantage of our technology, but that's okay. In the long term, in this new ecosystem, the winner will be the one that works best so that the community, customers, and competitors become partners developing it with you. Something that I've learned working in marketing is that this market is enormous. Like, all of us playing with our little, in our kiddie pool of Kubernetes are a very, very small part of the overall market for the technology that we interface with. Which means that I don't have to be snide towards VMware. I don't have to hate Red Hat. It's not like we're two companies fighting for the one customer that exists on the planet. Innovation, partnerships, relationships, that stuff brings up and builds up the community as a whole. And it's the community. It's all of the customers and users and everybody out there that are who we have to take care of. And I think that monetization, while important, should always come after taking care of people. Preach it, Father Adrian. Hi, Sysdig. 65 things I wish I knew when I started to code. I'm not going to read all 65 of them. When I first saw this, I was like, there's probably like 10. No, there's not. There's really 65. Of varying value. Some of them are just interesting things to vomit out. Some of them are actually useful, but I highlighted, and hopefully this is one of those articles that keeps my highlighting. I highlighted stuff, did it? Oh man, it totally didn't. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to read all 65 of them now. I highlighted some stuff this morning that I thought was applicable to everything. And let me just see if I can quickly find a few of them. The perfect timing is now. Now is the best time to start Actually, the best time to start anything was yesterday or possibly even a few days ago, but the next best time is now. Don't procrastinate. Just do it. Coding should be the last phase of a project. Most of the coding that I do is actually coding to solve a problem that's present in front of me now, and I often code things as the first part to figure out if it's even worth solving the problem this way. If you're building an application that you want to sell, then yeah, planning. Do lots and lots and lots of planning before you ever get to coding. Your coding should just be the model of the plan that you've already come up with and tested and talked to people about and explored and poked holes in and stuff like that. Be curious about why things work. This is just a good life policy. This is core to everything that I do. I'm always like, oh, what's that word? Or, oh, what's that software? And I go and look, and I'm like, oh, I can put this in my toolbox. Or, oh, I have no use for this. And having no use for it is also in here, where it's important to understand, okay, so it's easy to get carried away. No tech is perfect. Version control is a must. Does anybody not use version control today? Like, I mean, come on. Really? Can you imagine applying for a job and they're like, oh no, we don't use version control. Or we're exploring the idea of using RCS. What do you think? Or Subversion. I know some places still use Subversion. I was a big Subversion fan, and my employees in Poland were like, dude, you really need to get on board with Git. That was like 15 years ago or something. How long ago was that? Was this 2021? 13? 10? 11 years ago? Git. Open source is awesome. The project is never fully finished. Get 80% of the way there. Always be aware of the 20-80 rule. The last 20% of a project takes 80% of the time. You can apply this anywhere. You can, 80% or 20% of your customers make up 80% of your revenue. So spend time on them and not on the 80% that make up the other 20% because they're just going to be a resource drain. The 80-20 rule applies, and basically it's spend your time on the smallest thing that gets you the most value, and don't nitpick. Knowing something well is better than pretending to know a bit of everything. That's good. Achievements boost your motivation. Okay. Don't compare yourself to others. I heard something once that I'm probably going to butcher in retelling it, that it basically said something to the effect of, by yourself, you can be hungry and you can be tired. Zombie. Any other thing that you feel requires that you compare yourself to someone else. I'm poor, I'm smart, I'm like, all of it is in comparison. Be you for what you are and evaluate the things that you want to be and do based solely upon whether you want to be and do them. If you have not done enough, or if you don't feel like, whatever, don't compare. And just accept yourself, accept your strengths and weaknesses, and decide to build them up for no other reason than because you want to. Don't take criticism personally. The best way to learn is by teaching others. Core tenet of this show. This show exists because I wanted a reason to explore new technology on a daily basis. If I don't do that, I don't have show content for you. And everything else around it, the machine learning model, the scripting, the everything, has existed as ways to be able to do more with less, which is also important. Be a sponge for knowledge. Focus on the indexes, not the content. I like that. This is kind of an index for y'all. Learn to say no. Really important. If you don't learn to say no, other people will use your time and energy for their personal gain. That's a tough one to get other people to understand. We saw this talk about meetings. I just don't do meetings. I don't do meetings unless they are direct. Like, if it can't be done in any other way, then I'll do a meeting, and only if my contribution is significant. We've all been in meetings where you just sit there and you do nothing for the entire meeting, but your presence is required. You're not even listening. You're like typing on, working on some other project. Just don't go to that meeting. People will accept it. I explained to somebody that meetings are largely other people trying to hijack my time. And she was like, oh my God, that's so offensive. That's such a conspiratorial way of viewing the world. But it's true. By not getting involved in meetings, I get so much more done. And people are like, oh my gosh, how are you so productive? How do you get all of these things done? I don't go to meetings. I say no. I don't do things that I can't contribute to and that I don't have a vested interest in pushing forward. Schedule the week and prioritize. I don't do meetings even if they come up on the same day. I schedule my entire day at least 24 hours in advance, and I get really annoyed when people are like, oh, can you meet right now? Are you free right now? No, I'm never free. No. No, I'm not. Take breaks. This is the last one for this. I did a lot of work this weekend on GitOps, on some of the scripting, on some of the whatever, and yesterday was a holiday in the US, and I was like, I'm going to do more GitOps. And I sat down on my computer, and I was like, I'm going to go play video games all day. And even though I felt guilty about it, I felt like, I should be doing. No. Recognize when you've done something and reward yourself, or recognize when you've invested a lot of energy and take a break. Because even if you think you can go forever, just take a step back. Take a walk, get some sleep, let your brain relax. There's a bunch of other stuff in there that I think is also valuable. Some solutions, some bitching. Check out the article. It's going to be warm today. I can feel it's like humid. I have my door closed. Event-driven architecture is one of the things that's been bubbling up to the surface a lot over the last 3 weeks or so. Like I talk about the universal unconscious of the internet and how things are kind of synergistic. So event-driven stuff, there's some kind of push going on around that. I did all of the work for Streamlabs to be able to do this show, and it's all in Node-RED, which is effectively an event-driven architecture. Something happens, a broker does something with it, and it sends it somewhere else. And I think it's a great way to build bots, to build things that need to respond to things. Here, for example, they give an example here. Okay. Here they give an example of an event generator, so temperature 24 in room 503 on floor 16 in the blue building. And then a handler that does something with that, or multiple handlers. And then in the middle, you have a broker. Azure has a thing called the event grid that is a broker and allows you to do stuff with it. This is not going to be an Azure show. They have it, but there was a specific reason why I wanted to include it. Where did it go? Azure Event Grid. There was something that I thought was cool about it. Whatever. It's gone. Anyway, if you're using Azure, what can you do with it? You can do all sorts of stuff with it. Integrate your applications. You can do whatever. I don't know. Azure. Yay. Moving on. Azure's also been bubbling up to the surface a lot lately. Yesterday we had DAL-E on. DAL-E is the image extension of GPT-3. Yesterday on Hacker News, somebody actually talked about how they're trying to build an open source light version of GPT-3 for general consumption. Good luck, because this article tells you just what went into the creation of GPT-3. Not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's pretty long and involved. It explains how machine learning works. And I really like that they talk about a core component of machine learning, which is step 2 right here. Magic. Magic. There's a lot of stuff that happens in machine learning where they don't know why. They feed it something and it just tries a whole bunch of different stuff and makes decisions about things, and then that's called the magic. Well, within GPT-3, that magic, I highlighted it. Okay, first of all, this dude has a video on YouTube called Intro to AI that shows a simple machine learning model with one parameter. GPT-3 has 175 billion parameters. Billion with a B. And in order to generate all of those parameters, this is for those folks who are thinking of making the light open source version of this. So each of these layers has 1.8 billion parameters. Where did I see? Ah, there it is. All the experiments required to train the model were estimated to cost 355 GPU years and cost $4.6 million. Damn, it's cool. It'll get you more into how GPT-3 works, with like a nice explanation of how GPT-3 works, so that you understand a little bit more that, like, yeah, it's magic, but it's pretty cool. Real quick, Loft had a thing about readiness probes and liveness probes in Kubernetes. They do these periodically and they update them. I throw them back on the show because people explain the stuff in different ways. This one calls out once again the how to make probes. Okay, whatever. Common pitfalls, cascading failures. And I want to throw this out for the chat as a question. The example that they give is, let's say that you have an application and it uses a database. And so in your readiness probe for your application, you have it actually check that the database is responding. And if not, then it says, I'm not ready, and it stops receiving traffic. They say, oh, we don't want that. We actually want to surface that and show that to the consumer that there's a database problem. I'm not sure that I agree with that. I think that if the application is only partially dependent on a database, then yes, because we can still do other things. And they actually use that as the example in external dependencies where an app might use a key value store for caching, but if the key value store is down, it just does a full table scan, so it still works, but in a degraded state. That, yes, fine. But I think that if your application is largely dependent on the database, I think failing the readiness probe on the app might be appropriate, as long as you can detect it and route people like somewhere else. Oh, this is down, let's send them to a fail whale page. So let's see if people have had a moment to reply in the live chat about how they feel about that. Nuno says he's responsible for all the Azure content that's surfacing. Ian says database unavailable message means little to nothing to the typical user. I agree. Think of something like Like, there are places where it's applicable. So Signal, for example, was just returning 403s in the app. And I was like, oh, I don't know what that means. They're not 403s, 503s. Okay, so 503 I know is there's no back end to serve this. So that's coming off of the load balancer. There, a relevant message would have been nice, and a black hole would not have been nice. Oh, okay. Nuno's going to a meeting. Goodbye, Nuno. All right, so no other responses. We got some 100% people agreeing with Ian. The rest of the article is an example of how to play with doing readiness probes. Hooray. Oh, you guys like that. That's cool. That's the last for the A/B test, giving today's show an average rating of 4 coffees. And setting us up for the next section. Today's tool of the day, shipwreck. Today's tool of the day is... What? No! No! No. Okay, today's tool of the day is not what it was supposed to be. That means that the other thing didn't end up as a tool of the day. That sucks. I'm going to go back and actually pull it out and make it a tool of the day. Because it was really cool. Sorry, shipwreck. Today's tool of the day is also kind of cool. It's just a simple CPU stress test tool. It's not nearly as exciting as I made it out to be because the other one was really cool. You'll have to tune in tomorrow for the other one. So you can run this as a Docker container to generate CPU stress for testing horizontal pod autoscaling. There you go. Or possibly even cluster autoscaling or whatever, anything else. Super basic, super simple, just generates CPU load. Yesterday we had Gremlin on, and so, you go make a Gremlin account and deploy all this infrastructure, and then you can run your attack, or you can just run something like this. Some people prefer one, some people prefer the other. I don't have a lot to say about this, which means I could have done another A/B test thing, or maybe I'll just end the show early. I'm gonna go to the live chat and see if anybody has anything to say. Wifebot says no. Trufflebot, give me an excuse. Why did the wrong tool of the day show up? Oh, the computers are underwater due to sin flooding. Okay. Max says stressy versus CPU burn. I'm sure that there are others out there that do this. I mean, honestly, CPU burn lets you utilize 100% of all available cores from the command line. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Compare that to stressy, which quantity parallel CPU stress test execution time. Yeah, okay. So there you go, CPU burn, your second tool of the day today. Ian's like, finish the show early? Never. I know, I'm just trying to come up with something to talk about here. Sysbench, let it calculate a load of prime numbers. That's from Ian. Let's go look at Sysbench. Oh yeah, okay, how to benchmark your system. That looks like that's gonna create a bunch of stress. CPU benchmarking. Max says, +1 stressy for easy little Docker file to test all of your Kubernetes clusters. Marco says on Debian you have stress also. Yeah, that would work if you compile that into your container. Or if you compile a container that had that in it. Whereas I think if I'm going to go compile a container, I might as well just use a container that... What? Baby Shark? Anyway, I'm just going to use a container that already has something baked in. Wifebot gets the point for distracting Adrian. Baby Shark. Okay. Marco says prime numbers. This reminds me of the Prime 95 Windows tool. I don't know that one. Prime 95. Optimus Prime. Prime 95. Really? Prime 95. I'm not going to look at that. Let's look at the Wikipedia article. Oh, those are images. Ah. No, I don't want to share. What do you click on? Oh, you click on Wikipedia. Okay. I'm like, what do I click on to show me the thing? Not more Google crap. It's a freeware application written by blah. It used the great internet Mersenne prime search, a distributed computing project dedicated to Mersenne prime hunting, and overclocking circles is commonly used for stability testing. Huh. That's cool. Leave it to people to figure out how to use something for not its intended purpose. Due to the operations performed by Prime 95 and its emphasis on performance, extreme pressure is exerted on the various computer subsystems when used with certain parameters. This can help identify issues with RAM, FPUs, and power delivery and other components. In a stable system, running Prime 95 would not result in crashes or incorrect results. It is due to this that Prime 95 is one of the most common tools used by the overclocking community to assess the stability of their systems, even up on Windows 10. Looky there. Cool. Thanks, Marco. You have enabled the show to go longer than 30 minutes. Yay! Coffee and Cloud Native, the 30-minute show that takes 32 minutes to do. That's all for today. Sorry about the tool of the day not being the cool tool of the day. Come back tomorrow. It'll be the cool tool. Thank you so much for tuning in. Links to everything I talk about on the show go up in the free community site at community.cncn.io after the show ends. Come join us. Community members get early access to the links, video replay, and other exclusive content. If you have something you would like me to consider for the show, post it in the community site or in the show suggestions channel in Discord. Have a great day, everyone. Keep learning. I don't know why that little QR code is still there. Keep learning. Do it. Stay curious. I'll see you in the next show. Stay caffeinative.